Every year, I meet with people to help them plan out their year ahead and set some intentions for what they want to create this year. And every time I do this, every single year, doesn't matter if it's at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year, one of the things that I hear over and over again is this: Ash, how can I justify taking time for a hobby, for a creative practice, for developing myself spiritually when the world is on fire? And this year, especially, I was having this conversation with people who I had the exact same conversation with at the beginning of last year. And one of the things I asked everybody was the world on fire a year ago? Yes. Was the world on fire 10 years ago? Yes. The time is going to pass regardless, and you get to choose what you do with that time. What do you want to create with that time? If you're new to my channel, my name is Ash. I am a creative and spiritual coach, astrologer, psychic channel, and I primarily work with people who are going through life transitions, rediscovering who they are, mostly neurodivergent folks, and I help you create a creative and spiritual life you feel excited about, you feel proud of, and that you feel actually fits you. But today I'm going to be talking about my own personal project as an artist. 1 year ago, I made the decision for myself to commit to maintaining an illustrated journal. And my intention wasn't to journal every single day. It was just to get into a routine, get into a rhythm of drawing something from my life each day as a way to celebrate life, celebrate being here, and just celebrate the creative process. And I just finished my last sketchbook of this year, and I wanted to go through some of my sketchbooks that I created over the last year to talk about and illustrate why it's worth making time for a creative practice just for yourself. It doesn't have to be to make money. It doesn't have to be to become a professional. It can be something that you just do because it brings you joy and it makes life worth living, even when everything is burning down. So before I show you the first page of this first sketchbook that I started around my birthday last year, I just want to say that I have been practicing at drawing and art for years. I took art classes in high school. I took some printmaking and bookbinding classes when I was in college. And at the time that I started this process, I had already been participating in like a social drawing group for about a year. So I definitely wasn't like a complete beginner when I started this, but even so, the first page of my illustrated journal is this, and you can see that there's a lot of text on this page, and this pterodactyl is a toy that I got at a store that day to celebrate my birthday. I really love dinosaurs, and I went out and I got some breakfast, so I did a little drawing, actually. It's really funny. Okay, I can't wait to show you the next one, which is the last page of the last journal that I finished on my birthday. So I have on here that I had a super yummy breakfast. I have a picture of an omelet, potatoes, and coffee that I got when I was in Lawrence, Kansas. And then this is the one that I finished the year with. So and on the very last day of the year, on my actual birthday, this is the breakfast that I drew. I had an omelet and potatoes and toast. I drew the condiments. I drew a cup of coffee, and I drew some things that were on the wall in the restaurant. So I was actually with my drawing group friends. I'd go to a drawing, like a social fun drawing group every weekend. And so I was with my friends having breakfast on my birthday, which was the perfect way to end the year. I didn't even realize that until I started recording this video, that I started out this whole process drawing my breakfast and I ended it. And even though it's not the most amazing illustration in the world, you can see how much I grew and how much more confident I became in a year. Even though I didn't do it perfectly, even though I didn't show up every single day, I grew so much. And the other thing I want to tell you is when I flip back through these journals, there's so many good memories that I captured through my illustrations. So this was about 11 days into this illustrated journaling experiment where I started to feel like I was getting a little bit more my stride in my style and how I wanted to journal. But one of the biggest differences that I noticed between how I started and where I ended is that initially I was writing a lot in my journal about my day, and I already had another journal that I used to record my thoughts and stuff. Every day I do kind of like the artist way method, except for I do 1 page most days of the week rather than 3. But this is where I really saw myself start to go from just doing like little small illustrations to bigger pictures. And this was the room that I had at the time, and these were some dogs that I walked. That day I started drawing pictures of like the books that I was reading, and I started using a lot more crayons and color, which really started to bring my style out more over the course of these pages. But one of my main jobs is that I am a pet care provider, so I walk dogs every day and I take care of people's pets when they're on vacation. So originally, when I didn't really know what to draw, I was doing a lot of pictures of dogs, just drawing pictures of the dogs that I, walked and was taking care of. And I was also drawing pictures of like my guitar, because I was also practicing guitar a lot over the last year. And just like little scenes. This is actually the view from my window and my room at that time on a snowy day. When I was doing this first sketchbook, I also went on a trip to California. So this was the fireplace that I was at and the Joshua tree that was in the yard at the place that I was staying. But like also there's a lot of drawings in here that I don't really love, right? It's not like every single drawing I did is one that I feel super proud of. I did this picture of a mini golden doodle that I watched. She's one of my favorite dogs, and she was just really hard to draw at that time because she's so furry. And I just didn't really have the confidence to capture it. And even during like this period of time, I started paying more attention to the colors that I was using. I can see myself, kind of struggling on some of these pages to express myself. Looking back over it, I can see actually that I was working out a lot of problems during this period of time. I didn't exactly know how to solve some of those problems, but because I was showing up every day not every day, but I was showing up regularly to this process. And so I was working out those problems along the way. So this was just like probably a couple weeks later, the same dog, and it's better, I improved. Then I started getting really into using crayons, and I really started making some stuff that I really loved. So this is a tree. I did this one day while I was drawing with some friends outside. And it was such a beautiful day, and it was spring, and it was just like, I was in the zone, just coloring and drawing and really feeling like I had kind of gotten into something that was feeling really good. So by April, I had gotten quite a bit more confident. I started my second sketchbook, and I wasn't just drawing a guitar anymore. I was practicing drawing myself playing guitar, which was pretty cool. And my dog drawings started getting a lot better. This is not the same dog, but it's kind of a similar problem with the hair, and I was trying to work that problem out. But I also started getting more confident drawing houses and architecture in pen. And then I really started leaning in May to color. And this is me in the hot tub. This is another tree that I did. I did a lot of outdoor sketching over the course of the summer and did some really cool, colorful crayon illustrations. And I can see just like, even as I'm flipping through these pages, how I was letting myself take up more space on the page with my drawings. So the illustrations became more of the focus and the text became less of the focus as I became more confident. But here again, not every single one is a winner. I didn't love this one, but I was just kind of like showing up. And one of the biggest things that I learned from this process is that like just showing up was enough. And that I was making progress even when I didn't like the drawings that much. So this is a very similar concept. This is what I did one day. This is a drawing of my dog Thistle. I was trying to figure out how to translate like layering the colors into doing an illustration of her. And the very next day, I tackled the same problem. I used fewer colors. I love this one so much more. It's one of my favorite pictures I drew of my dog over the course of this last year. And like this one, embrace this feeling is what I wrote here. This was when I found out that I was going to be moving into the house that I currently live in, and I was just so happy. I was in such a good mood, and every time I look at this page, even though that drawing itself isn't necessarily my favorite drawing I've ever done, the feeling that it brings up for me is one of such peace and contentment, and it's something that I wouldn't have been able to capture in any other way than just drawing. So this is when I moved into my house and I had my TV set up and everything, and I was celebrating that. Just like a little over a month later, another drawing that I did of my dog. So I grew so much in 7 months. I will go back and show you one of the first drawings I did of my dog. Like, this is the very first picture that I did of her in this sketchbook. From January to July, huge difference. And I wasn't really taking any classes during this period of time. I would watch videos on YouTube and stuff, but every once in a while I would watch a video on YouTube, but I was mostly just learning from doing, just showing up to my own personal practice and allowing my hand to show me the way. This is a spread from a day that I was drawing in a coffee shop, and these pictures, they just make me happy because they remind me of that day and how much fun I was having drawing with my friends in this coffee shop. And I remember exactly what we were talking about when we were in the coffee shop. This one also was drawing with some friends at a bar. So I remember that day so clearly. I don't need the words so much to, remember what was happening. I just remember it from the picture. This is another drawing I did of my dog. This one was in August, so I was working a lot on drawing her. This is one of my favorite ones I did. It's a drawing of my dog sitting on the rug, and this is the door to the room, to my living room. I had this really big, colorful drawing that I did of some trees at a park when I was hanging out with my friends, and that was the end of my second sketchbook for the year. So the first sketchbook, I was really committing to the process and finding my rhythm and what was going to work for me for showing up on a regular basis. My mindset was very much just show up. The second sketchbook is where I really started to develop some of my favorite styles and taking up a lot more space on the page and just feeling more confident overall. And by the time I got to my third sketchbook in September, I actually started taking some classes. So I took some intuitive art workshops during this period of time, and I also took a mixed media course at a local art museum. And I see myself trying and experimenting a lot more in the pages of this sketchbook, and also taking a lot more notes in this one about different techniques and processes that I wanted to try, that I was learning about at that time. So this is where I started this sketchbook at. I had these dogs that I was taking care of a lot during this period of time, and I absolutely loved them. So I wanted to feature them on the whole first page. And this is an example of some of the kind of intuitive, more emotional processing style that I was doing in a workshop during this period of time. I was really enjoying just like listening to jazz and having a relaxed practice. It was also starting to get a little bit colder out during this period of time, so it was nice to have that. But I was still doing quite a bit of outdoor sketching. This was one of my favorite days, hanging out at a park with some friends around when I took my first mixed media class. So I had done a collage that I really liked, and I decided that I wanted to try to capture that day in my sketchbook. So I actually drew out what I had collaged. This is from a day that one of my friends, it was her birthday that day. Somebody brought her flowers, so I was drawing the flowers, and I really liked that. But because I was taking this mixed media class, I was really starting to improve at my actual drawing skills. So I see myself focusing, like slowing down and focusing a little bit more on my technique. I was kind of getting out of that just show up mindset that I had really had in the first sketchbook, and starting to develop a little bit more at my craft. I started getting more into painting, so I was working on some color palettes at this point in time, trying to get my painting color palette down, and was doing some more painting rather than drawing. So that was a whole different beast. This is one of my last pages in this sketchbook from a plein air session. It was October and I was still drawing outside. I was in my mixed media class. I was learning about markers. So I was doing some marker practice during that time. Here's a dog that I drew around that same period of time. And here's another sketch from a dog walk that I had done, just a scene that I really loved. I was really excited that day because I had gotten a job doing a walk in one of my favorite parks in the city, and so I wanted to kind of memorialize that. So this sketchbook was definitely a lot more working on different processes and trying out different things, and a lot of the art that I actually created during the period of time that I was using this sketchbook, which was roughly from September to November, is actually not in this sketchbook at all. I started working more on larger pieces. So I slowed down a little bit with the illustrated journaling process during that period of time because I was starting to work on painting. This is one of my favorite paintings that I did. My mixed media teacher suggested that I start using this kind of pen, and I gotta say there was a little bit of a learning curve with it. I didn't love the way that these looked in the beginning. I got better because I had practiced picking up different mediums and learning how to work with them. And actually I just did a drawing this past week in my new sketchbook with these pens that I really liked a lot, but I will save that for next year's video. Ended out the year doing some intuitive sketching and drawing. I was really tired and burnt out and I didn't really want to think too much, so this is what the results were. I just really wanted to finish this sketchbook, and then that brings us up to the most recent time. But over the course of this entire recap and review of my drawing over the course of 2025, I've shared a lot of the lessons that I learned throughout this process. I'm so glad that I committed to doing the illustrated journal for a year. I grew so much. I really found a lot of things about my personal style that I loved, and also just looking back over these sketchbooks, I have so many good memories that I captured through my drawings. In 2026, I definitely plan to continue doing some illustrated journaling and also working on larger pieces at the same time, because I found that for me, it's nice to be able to have a project that I'm working on that I can come back to when it works for me and not feel so much pressure to like finish a drawing every single day. At the same time, I think that this container of just not overthinking and getting something down on the page was really, really good for me. I hope this video gives you a little bit of inspiration to commit to a creative practice for yourself, just because the year is gonna pass regardless, and it's better to put your energy and your effort into something that is actually fulfilling you, bringing you joy, and something that you can look back on at the end of the year and see how much progress you made, see how much you grew. Even if you have periods of time where you can't show up for it, it's okay, because momentum still exists. Even if you have to take breaks, even if you have to pause, you're still gaining so much momentum just by having a practice. And if having a personal creative and spiritual practice is something that you're really desiring to have, but you're struggling with your inner critic, you're struggling with feeling like you're allowed to take time for yourself, you're struggling with feeling like you have a right to experience joy in a world that feels like it's constantly handing you more things to feel worried and concerned about, you might be a great fit for my Spiritual Being program. It's a group coaching program that also has weekly spiritual rituals, and I'm really here to help you learn how to trust yourself, hold space for yourself, and show up for the things that actually matter for you, so that you don't arrive at the end of this year feeling like you don't really have as much to show for it as you wanted to. If that's something that interests you, I'll link it down in the description below this video so you can learn more about it, what it looks like to be inside of Spiritual Being School. But of course, no pressure. And if you just enjoyed hearing about my journey drawing and watching my growth over the year, then I appreciate you being here. And feel free to check out some of the other videos on my channel. I mostly post intuitive readings, but if you like my energy, you like my vibe, then stick around. And I appreciate you, and I hope you have an amazing year.